Okay, here we are, Saturday in week 5 of the benchmark course on the 12th of March 2022. As always on a Saturday, there's lots of races that you can select from. First thing to do is to have a look at the day summary. So if we bring that up, we'll find ideally we'll be looking for a meeting where the rail is in the true position and the track's not too wet. Unfortunately, the way it works out today, there's really only very limited meetings where we can meet those conditions. I was hoping to get a slightly drier track in Sydney, but unfortunately, the track in Sydney is still heavy 9 and seems unlikely to be getting any better during the day. So there's once the track goes beyond heavy 8, there's little point trying to do form based on ratings, etc. You really need to be finding horses that can handle wet tracks. Corowa does have the rail in the true position and a dry track. There's a lot of non-TAB meetings today where there's obviously rail in the true because they don't race very often, but well, you can't bet on them. We could have a look at Corowa, okay, and so that may well be, we have a very quick look at that. And having a look at that very briefly, it does look like this Tough James has some sort of chance of winning the race, but he's got the 39-second sectional for the last 600 and 1:28.48 for the race time over 1400, which is a very strange time. So it'd be interesting to see how Tough James goes. The obvious race to do today to fit in with everybody else is to look at Flemington. Now again, I don't have a lot of faith in Victorian racing anymore since they've brought in these wonderful jump outs. And in fact, the first race is already run, so the day's already going very quickly, which is the main race for the day, the Shaftesbury Avenue. We have a look at this. Again, we don't have to bet on the weakest races of the day. We can always bet on the weakest or the strongest, and anywhere in between. It doesn't really matter where you win. But we'll have a look at this race just as an exercise. So it's a 4-year-old race, Group 3. So the group races go from Group 1 to Group 4, or we call listed races Group 4. Alright, so most form guides will have listed, we're calling that Group 4. So if you see Group 4, there's also Group 7, which is for races like Magic Millions, where you have conditions for the horses to run in those races. So they're sort of like higher quality races, but they're not open to everybody. So they're restricted group races, hence Group 7. So this one is 104, 97 abridged average, 200,000 prize money. Plenty of starts, pretty impressive figures, 52% places. So in other words, every horse in this race on average has run a placing 1 out of 2 starts. Needless to say, the figures are going to go down after this race, because obviously only 3 of them are going to run a place, so 12 of them, or however many, 10 of them are not going to. Anyway, going through the form from the top, Junipal has run last start 6th in a 99 race, so he's down a couple of benchmark points with the same weight, reasonable barrier. He's only second up, probably a place chance. Kisses on all 4 cheeks is one of these ones come over from Western Australia. Generally speaking, when they come from the west, they're pretty good. He's down a few kilos in weight, and we haven't got it wide enough to see what the figures are. He's run second in a 93. He's up to a 97, so he's down a few kilos in weight, and then he's up slightly in class. You'd have to think he's some chance. 28 days off. Rock made some pretty good movies, but doesn't seem to be racing well enough. Generally though, when they come down from Sydney, they're a little bit stronger in Sydney than Melbourne. So you would think he would be some sort of chance, but 28 days off, again with these top class horses, it doesn't matter that much. The day is off, but we'd be preferring him from the barrier. Crosshaven is kind of the same. He has run a 4th a couple of starts back over this same course with slightly more weight. He's got a slightly worse barrier. He's got slightly more days off. He's got a few more things against him into this slightly, arguably stronger race, but he has got a couple of kilos less. We'd have to be preferring him. Milton Park, It's been racing very well over longer distances. Last time he was first up, he ran in an 1100 metre race, so that's probably irrelevant. He has been leading in his races, and so he may well be able to take up a handy spot, but you'd think he'd be a preferred job first up. Rich Hips is not really racing that well, although did win a race 3 starts back. Obviously has a few problems, 133 days, had a couple of runs, then had time off, and then it's got another spell, so there's a lot of days off, so there may be some problem with this horse. Nash is down to ride it, so obviously, you know, he's a very good rider. Barrier 13 is going to need luck from there. We're going to prefer a Shylot, clearly pretty good horse that races well, fresh. So it won there, 112 days off, won same course, 101. This is a 97, had 56. It's now got 55 and a half, so it's very well weighted based on that run. Then won again, first up at Sandown in a slightly stronger race for slightly less weight. This is the sort of horse that in theory is going to fire first up. So although our general rule is to ignore or avoid horses that are first up, this horse clearly, well, 4 for 4, clearly saves its best runs for when it's fresh. It probably has some heart issue such that it can't handle a lot of training. But on the other hand, if you can get it to win first up, why not just keep it fresh? Cherry Tortoni is racing well in similar standard races, has got a wide barrier, and so that may prove to be a factor against it. Hasn't really fired, although did run second in the Australian Guineas from barrier 15. So again, barrier draw is of course a probability feature. It's a probability feature based on the horses that are inside the horse, and also just simply how the horse jumps. It can jump quickly and then get into a good spot, or it can be caught wide. It can jump slowly and get into a really terrible position, or it can manage to get into a good position. So from barrier 12, the probabilities are against it. That's all you can say. Whether or not it gets into a good position, we can't really say. But anyway, it looks a place chance. 4 home 2. There you go, 4 home 2. One of these imported horses that clearly has good form. 19 days, so it has had some sort of trial or something. Yes, it ran at Rose Hill. We could update those figures to get more information, but we don't really need that. We're going to prefer this one first up. Our Playboy is racing well, also first up. Only 105 days, so not that long. Did win with 28 days off over 1600 in a weaker race. So, and does have Jamie Carr. So again, as I mentioned the other day, you can find the top riders can give you pointers. I don't know whether Jamie Carr is the top rider at the moment or not, but close to it. The top rider obviously is the one that's going to be given all the opportunities. Everyone's going to want Jamie Carr to ride their horse. And so therefore she or her manager will have many opportunities. And so the horse that she finally decides to lob onto does so for some reason. Whether that proves to be correct in this race is hard to say. The horse is first up. It does look like it can run well fresh. We'll put it in as a place chance. Holbein doesn't seem to be racing well enough, so we'll be preferring that one. It must have a high rating somewhere to be $8.70. It's got 35 days off though, so probably will need the run. Has got a good barrier, so it could just battle away and run a place. It's another one of those potential long shots that could run a place, but there does seem to be a lot of horses better in this race. 14 Morvada. Morvada's been racing well in slightly stronger race. Racing handy from a reasonable barrier. Has to be some chance. 21 days off is a bit of a concern. It did run second last time after 21 days off, leading. So it's going to be very hard to lead throughout in this race, however. And it does look like 1400 metres may be the full extent of how it can go, but it's going to have to go well. Linda Meach is riding very well. Ain't No Deal Done is clearly a pretty good horse. He's got 494 days off, 33 days since a trial. Another one we'd really prefer to see first up, Barrier 11. And we've gone round once. So sorting according to the chances, we have 3, 9 and 14. And none of which are terribly inspiring. Kisses on All Four Cheeks is second up. Charlotte is first up. And Morvada is third up. So obviously based on simple calculations, Morvada is the one to go for. So if we look at just the market, Morvada's on top. Junipal was set for a place. Holbein, huge over. If you have a look at the figures here. Holbein's a huge over, but again, as I say, it seems unlikely given the other chances in the race. Our Playboy may well end up being an over. Kisses on All Four Cheeks is not an over, and so on. Charlotte is a fair way down. So, based upon the market and based upon the analysis we've done so far, Morvada looks to be the go in this race. Now, we can have a look at a few more features. We did look at comparisons yesterday. Horses that were of interest was 3. So let's have a look at the 3. It's not in there. The 9, Shalo, is there. So last time she ran against some of the other horses. Crosshaven beat her by a fair way. He's got a worse barrier. Shalo ran okay. Morvada was beaten even further, leading and got run over. So that's the only concern with Morvada, is it's going to lead and get run over. And we go back a bit further, which is a fair way back, almost a year ago. In fact, more than a year ago. We have Rich Hips beating it, but Rich Hips was in much better form then. So that's not really conclusive. The 14, look at that. Well, it ran well and beat those other ones last time, and the other runs are the same as before. So based on this run, it's going to go well. It's got these horses beaten in theory. The other ones which were interested were of 1, the place bet. So Junipal's come from a long way back from barrier 4. It's now got barrier 6, got the same weight. So you'd think it would be finishing on again. So that could be a good place chance, as we've outlined. And the 10, Cherry Tortoni, doesn't look, based on this run, to be able to beat either of these other ones. Going back a couple of runs, Cherry Tortoni has been beating Crosshaven, who's been beating Cherry Tortoni, so there's not much between those two. So based on this, Morvada is going to beat Junipal. But you would think Junipal would be coming home at the finish. Now the rail last time was in the true position. Today the rail's in the 5 metre position. So in other words, that in theory favours Morvada over Junipal. So a lot of features point to Morvada running well. If we look at the sectional times, we have our Playboy, who we thought was a place chance on top. Very fast sectional time over 1800 metres. Morvada's next after that. Again, very good sectional time. So when they have really fast sectional times like this, generally it looks like the horse is going to be run over if there's going to be more genuine speed. Junipal, on the other hand, has come from 5 positions back, slightly worse barrier. In theory, Junipal looks like, based on the fact that they're going to probably go more genuine in speed here, it does look like Junipal could in fact run over Morvada. But in fact, both of them are overs on this system, and so the market is looking remarkably good for this race. Morvada and Junipal. Now there are a few other possible chances in the race, but overall it doesn't look to be a bad assessment for the race. The other race of interest from a video analysis viewpoint is at Ascot. So if we look at race 6, we'll find in the end that in this race there's 8 of them run against each other at their last start. So In terms of if you're looking to do a race from a video analysis viewpoint, or race replay, this race has 8 of the horses that run against each other, 8 of the 11. So in other words, you simply need, well not simply, quite often that doesn't work out, but in simple terms you can watch that last race, and from that information you can get some serious pointers, since 8 of the 11. Now obviously the other 3 horses may end up being very good, as already been suggested, but that's a great way of doing your analysis. So this race unfortunately is only a 3-year-old race. We've only got 83 starts, and unfortunately today at Ascot they're all distance races, or the last few races. So again, with distance races you want to be looking for horses that can run the distance rather than necessarily using the ratings. So the ratings, once you get beyond sort of 1800 metres, it is really about whether the horse can run a strong distance or not. Obviously all the horses can run 2200 metres, but can they run flat out and be able to win the race at 2200? That's the question. So if you have time, this race isn't going to run until 3 p.m. Western time, which in Eastern States is 6. If you have time, you might like to watch those replays and come up with a good selection. Race replay analysis has not been part of this course. So anyway, we'll see how we go on the Shaftesbury, and that's about it for this video.